Clark has a friend named Chloe who might be able to help. She really loves weird tech stuff like this. She even has this whole wall of weird.
I call it the Wall of Weird.
That's when it all began. The town went schizo.
Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on both the end of Supergirl Season 3 as well as some stuff moving into Season 4. So Supergirl has come and gone for another season, with Season 3 ending with quite a few big moments, with characters such as Wynn and Mon-El leaving the show as regular members. And even though they will be in next season in some capacity, it will still be a big change just if you're, used to those characters being on the show, especially Wynn, seeing that he has been there, on the show since episode 1 of Season 1. But the biggest part of the Season 3 finale was obviously the cliffhanger leading into Season 4. And this is when we see Lena telling Miss Tessmacher about the continuation of the experiments, and this is when we see the fight between Supergirl and Rain happen again, but 48 hours in the past, with that black rot, the Harranel, or like the kryptonite, or the black kryptonite, and then we cut to the Siberian border where we see another Kara in a cloak. So what the hell is going on there? Well, there are a few options as to what is being teased here, with there actually being a confirmation by the people behind Supergirl, which is pretty interesting, but we'll get into that in a second. But some of the ideas and options from various fans online as to what was going on here were that it could be like another, iteration of Overgirl, similar to what we saw in the Crisis on Earth X crossover. However, this Kara would have to have shown up in Germany to have, for that to have made sense, in my opinion. Another option was that this could actually be Power Girl that we're seeing here, which was possible and something that many have wanted to happen at some point, and something that we might bring up later in this video. But the last option, which seemed like it could have been an option that they were going for, looked to be a take on the story, or the opening story, in the New 52, where Kara's pod is sent to Smallville, but instead it crashes through the Earth's core and is sent to Siberia instead. So Kara emerges from her pod, having forgotten that Krypton had actually been destroyed, and goes on a journey to figure out what the hell's going on. It would have been pretty strange if they went with this though, as even though it does relate to what we saw, basically, or happen on screen, the Last Daughter of Krypton story arc, where that's from, was essentially the main appearance of Rain and the World Killer in the World Killers, in the comics. So they'd be, sort of reusing the same thing, even though we haven't seen it before, if that makes sense. But as you can get from what we just went over, we are speculating. Nothing concrete, just going over what we saw and theorizing from that. But that's not what the producers or the showrunners wanted us to do. So instead of letting those that are actually interested in what's going to be going down in Supergirl Season 4 to, just sit there and theorize over all of this stuff, they instead just decided to, tell us what they're going for with this cliffhanger, which sort of doesn't make it a cliffhanger, does it, if they tell us what it is? Anyway, this is what they had to say. For fans of the comics, I think they might recognize that the story we want to tell is inspired by the iconic DC Comics Red Sun, which told an alternate origin story for Superman. What happened if, as a baby, Superman landed in Russia and became a hero there instead of in America? It's an homage to that. So that is what we are getting next season with Supergirl, or at least to start it off with, a take on the Red Sun storyline, but I guess you'd call it Red Daughter. But I guess the big question around this, and it was something that I brought up in my review for the finale, as I was sort of confused, is whether the Kara we saw in Siberia is our Kara and she is all confused, or if this is basically like a time aberration or remnant caused by Kara traveling through time to prevent the deaths of Sam, Mon-El, and Allura, or is this a version of Kara that is like a combination of Rain and Supergirl formed by the black smoke from like the Harranel, or did the Harranel split Kara into two entities? There is a couple of options, and it will be interesting to see what goes on there, but obviously that is something that we will have to wait and see for, in Season 4 of Supergirl. Now, Melissa Benoist, who plays Kara, is on Broadway until early August. I think it's August the 4th that she wraps up, and the show actually starts filming Season 4 in the middle of July, so like 2 or 3 weeks before a Broadway thing is up and over. So if this was our Kara that ended up in Siberia and was all confused, that would make sense, and they could just focus on the others dealing with Kara's disappearance in the early episodes before having like a big reveal of Red Daughter Supergirl in a later episode. But if that's not the case, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that in the early episodes for season 4. But anyway, roughly, what is the Red Sun storyline in the comics? What goes down, and how could Supergirl adapt it and put their own spin on it? Well, the story is essentially that Kal-El, or Superman, is raised in the Ukraine, but the actual story doesn't pick up until like the 1950s. We don't really focus on his childhood too much, and that is when the Soviet Union actually announces Superman's presence to the outer world, which, as you would imagine, scares the United States of America just a tad. This Elseworlds story has some familiar characters to Supergirl viewers, with James Olsen being a CIA agent, and Lex Luthor being a very bright scientist. Lex actually manages to trick Superman into helping out American citizens in order to get some of his DNA, so he, in turn, can create his own Superman, which ends up being basically the Bizarro for this story. That Bizarro actually ends up dying, saving like all these people from a nuclear incident. The story of Red Sun includes many of the normal DC, universe events, such as like Lex Luthor making Luthor Corps, Brainiac shrinking a city, but this time it's in the form of Stalingrad rather than Kandor and putting it in a bottle. Red sunlight is used to weaken Superman as it mimics his native sun, like we have seen on Supergirl before, but is also used as like an alternative to kryptonite. Lex Luthor becomes the president of the United States. But what we see happen towards the end of the story is that Superman attacks the United States, which is defended by both Green Lantern as well as the Amazons, so like Wonder Woman. But they are actually defeated. Superman, however, is thought to be, destroyed in space in a later battle, but does appear back on Earth at a later event in a, pretty familiar getup, dressed up as our good old friend Clark Kent. Now, Red Sun spanned over only 3 issues, which is pretty crazy, seeing that a lot goes down in this story. And that was actually one of the big criticisms with the story, just how crammed it was. Like, we usually would have got like a 5 or 6 issues for this story. But how would they use the Red Sun storyline, or a take on it at least, in Supergirl Season 4? Well, I think we would just get a very basic storyline where we could get this other Kara in Siberia or Russia, being their version of Supergirl, but discovering herself at the same time, as you would have to think that she will be a bit, frazzled. But eventually we will see her come into conflict with our Kara. Obviously, this is all relying on the fact that the Kara right at the end of the episode is another version, and not the same Kara that we're used to hanging out with. But at the end of all of it, when Season 4 comes to a wrap, it would not surprise me in the slightest, like at all, that this Kara who ended up being in Siberia gets some sort of like reboot or mental reboot or something like that, and actually becomes Power Girl, but goes off to another Earth primarily. Or they could have her stay on Kara's Earth, but just not be the one that's in like the USA and at National City. That is a stretch, but it would allow them to do the storyline that is pretty well known, the Red Sun storyline, but then also introduce a character that many people have wanted to see on the show for a while, that being Power Girl. Obviously, we do have Lena being a bit evil at the end of Season 3, and then also Manchester Black has been rumoured to be in Season 4. So they could all be involved with what goes down with this new Siberian border landing Kara. But obviously that is all for us to wait and see what goes down in Season 4. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions. They've confirmed they're going for a Red Sun, storyline take, so you can't really debate that. But how do you think they're going to handle it? Do you think they're going to be very faithful to the story from the comics, or do you think they're going to be very Flash Season 3 with Flashpoint and just use that sort of premise and do like some massive changes to it? Just let me know all of your opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.